Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're taking this undead warlock into the caves to hunt things of flesh and blood. This warlock was given another chance by the Lich King himself to help cleanse this world of all living things. We're going to go into the Goblin Caves on this permadeath journey to see how long we can survive. It looks like there's some pretty juice guys in a lot of these lobbies now, which makes it increasingly difficult. So to aid us on this quest of destroying everything alive, we've chosen to run the spells on top of Blow Corruption just for maximum damage for PvP. There is something to be said about using Phantom Eyes and Blow Corruption to just escape, but I find it not quite as enjoyable using the staff, and maybe that's something a little better suited for a falchion or halberd, or maybe even a longsword. The warlock is very reliant on escaping at least a couple times. Even a spellbook makes this class way more manageable. In this warlock's past, he was actually a wizard who was killed by Lich King on his quest to find treasures. He's now trapped inside this warlock's body, which means starting out, you don't really do a lot of spell damage. You have spells, sure, but all they're really good for is recovering HP. Curse of Pain is a very, very weak dot, and Curse of Sacrifice is stronger, but you can miss and easily kill yourself because the hitboxes on these spells and the ranges are much more difficult to land than you'd think. So it can be a challenge coming from the world of wizardry to this undead Hellfire casting warlock. Really, Hellfire, the only thing good about it is that it clears mobs. Other than that, it's great maybe for opening doors. But I don't really find too many situations where casting a Hellfire is actually worth your time. Usually it just leads to you getting rushed down and destroyed by a barbarian, and they simply just sidestep it or wait for it to pass. So, warlock, truthfully, I prefer playing as like a melee smash and dash sort of thing with Phantom Eyes and Blow Corruption. That can also be fairly gear dependent because you actually need a decent weapon to deal melee damage. But we'll see if we survive. Taking a lot of damage from those traps doesn't leave us in a great spot to fight this Goblin Mage. Thankfully he does his little power up. But sometimes Goblin Mages can hit you at the most strangest angles. We're gonna grab this pot and the health shrine because we're still learning how to get across that little trap safely. Sometimes you bounce off the walls and can't quite make the jump. We hear a guy fighting a centipede, which could give us an opportunity to grief this a bit. We hit him with a Curse of Pain, and then another, and that pretty much does him in. Now we have to deal with this guy, which lately, I don't know about you guys, but lately I've been getting hit by a lot more of the poison, even though I'm sidestepping and way to the side of this thing. Sometimes I'm even like behind it, and we're getting hit by the poison, so I'm not sure if something's changed on Centipede or I'm just doing it wrong now. I kind of have this one in a bad spot to rotate fully, but I do find it's trickier and trickier to not get hit by that poison. Luckily this guy was pretty weak. He'd already been smacked by a staff a few times, and we find pretty much junk. Like a blue bandage and a green potion from Centipede. It's not a great start. Normally you get at least some sort of pendant, but in this situation we get rather unlucky because that would have very much helped us, even strength, giving us a little bit more melee damage. Right now I think we're actually at a reduction, like melee strength reduction, because our strength stat isn't at 15 yet. So this is the tricky little way of getting across this thing safely. There's a safe spot on that side and a safe spot on this side, so you kind of got to leap over into the angle. Can be a little difficult when you're getting chased by somebody with a horseman's axe. And so far the Lich King would be proud of us as we've taken a fleshy body out of this world on top of the goblins and some centipedes, a goblin mage. I was expecting there to be a skeleton tucked around this corner, but I guess there's not. And don't forget to check this place because often there's quite a few potions. There's a lot of valuables up here, and usually it's just one skeleton you have to fight. It's a spot that's often overlooked. I've come in here before and found like 2 or 3 potions. So yes, the name of the game for this one is just loot. Get as much junky loot as possible. Anything at all that's valuable. Make it out alive. Get our spell book maybe. If there's even one in the shop. And some sort of melee upgrade if possible. Really, we don't need a lot of gold to do that. Spellbooks aren't super expensive. You just have to hope it's not a green one that outprices what you can afford. We still have to make it out of here. I'm quite surprised that I've been left alone as long as I have. I was very fortunate that the guy that spawned beneath me wasn't fully geared Chad. As once I started casting all those spells up here, Warlock spells are so freaking loud. You hear nothing. You literally can't hear a thing around you. I hear a portal in the distance. We're gonna try to take out these mobs and we just barely miss the Curse of Pain, which is gonna happen quite often. Making the most of Hellfire to deal some damage as we need to get rid of these guys quickly. We're gonna kill them and then loot as fast as we can to see if we can make it to that portal. I am not upset at all about getting out of here with 40 or 50 gold worth of items, considering how much more challenging Goblin Caves has become. I hear a guy fiddling with a potion close by. I thought I heard footsteps underneath me, but it's actually in the room beside me. And seeing how there's literally a guy called Goblin Cave Raid Boss. I'm gonna get some distance from this guy in case he's like a fully juiced Chad and I have no chance of fighting. Looks like we have a Barbarian with a War Maul, which could be basically a one-hit build. And we're gonna cast the Hellfire and then get the heck out of here. One Achilles Strike War Maul, that's it. Game over for us. We're gonna check him out. This is the guy. Get some okay stuff. A lot of additional physical damage. A couple additional physical damage. And giant War Maul. He could literally punch me with Achilles Strike and probably almost one-hit me. So, not a bad decision to make it out with the gear we had. And quickly proving this point, we're gonna see how this cleric does. He's okay. Used literally every option he had, but just missed a couple a mace swing that probably wouldn't have killed him anyway. So we're back. We get our stuff, and there's not a whole lot of great options in the shop. But there was an item there that could be valuable to us. Something I've never really thought of using on the Warlock before. And I'm quite surprised I don't see it more, considering it can block as well. And we'll see what that is here in a second. I don't actually think taking a chest piece is very good. Chest piece slows you down and doesn't provide much of anything early on for your Warlock. So yes, that item is a quarterstaff. Pretty much our only melee option here. We do want a spell book, but considering it's crystal balls and staves and crystal swords. Yeah. So we decide, really, I don't think there's much point in upgrading our staff with those options. And we're gonna buy that quarterstaff and some meds and go from there. Quarterstaff's kind of an interesting selection because it does provide decent bonk ability, if you know what I mean. That first swing comes out quite nicely at headshot level, and if you're using Blow of Corruption, that first hit would deal quite a lot of damage. It's one of the only options you have on the Warlock class that isn't incredibly slow. That's not the Falchion, so it's only 5 movement speed slower than the Falchion, with the ability to block. Something I always forget about on the quarterstaff is you can block with it, which could be potentially amazing, considering the Bardiche is also very good at that, but the Bardiche swing speed's so much slower. I feel like your recovery on the quarterstaff would be greatly improved if you could block and then one-tap people with Blow of Corruption. So it's definitely something that I'm intrigued by, and I'm excited to share how it goes. We also we're trying to decide on boots and items, and I think we're just going to fill ourselves with agility items just to get our equip speed up and stuff. At least get us to that 15 threshold, which makes us move a little bit faster. And by move a little bit faster, I mean it makes us do everything a little bit faster. Agility is an amazing stat. It increases so many things. So So we get some agility stuff, we sell everything, and then that's pretty much it. We are ready to go into another game. So this will be the first time in a long time I've used the quarterstaff. Like way back when it was first introduced, I used it on the Barbarian for a little while. And we'll actually get to see it on the test dummy here. But that Blow Corruption first hit headshot, it's close to 90 damage. I think even over 90 damage. It's pretty freaking nice considering this is a 33 damage or 34 damage quarterstaff. Not a terrible option when things get a little dicey up close. The issue you run into on Warlock is you kind of have to pick and choose melee or spellcaster. Admittedly, I'm not a very good spellcaster considering I just walked into my own Hellfire, which I thought was far enough away. Apparently not. We're going to need to recover some of that health back as we get used to this quarterstaff. I think it's probably best to just use the first attack and skip the other two attacks in the attack chain unless you're like super desperate for one hit. And we find a wizard hat with +2 additional physical damage, which will make that quarterstaff hit even harder, which is kind of a nice thing. That thing will pretty much be one-tapping anybody if we get headshot on a squishier class. We're trying to get as much health back here as possible. It's kind of annoying that that is not a health shrine up top. Sometimes it does spawn here. We're very low HP because of our earlier mistake. This part of being a warlock is probably the most frustrating. You're kind of forced to use these spells to regenerate health. Because magical healing when you first start out is like really poor. It takes a long time to tick it all back properly, and if you miss, that's the other thing, if you miss a Curse of Sacrifice because it goes under their arm or they rotate or something weird, you're basically deleting all the HP you've gained back. Not really sure where this goblin's going. We hear a guy close by, so we gotta be careful. Trying to test out this quarterstaff, and early results are suggesting it's not terrible. That was a pretty clean kill. This guy was just fighting for his life and decided maybe I was an easy target. Not quite sure. He paid the price at the end of our wooden stick. As we move on to collect more loot, try to get ourselves a spell book. Even finding a spell book would be nice. Another additional physical damage. I did not realize Adventurer's Tunic or whatever it is isn't a fighter class only item. Thought it was for some reason. Maybe it's just because that's what you start with. Or maybe because I play a lot of fighter class. See, that Curse of Pain missed, which cost me time and HP. And there are many situations where I wonder how things are missing. And I feel like the cast animation is a little bit different than when the spell actually hits. So it's not like a hit scan, it's got a weird kind of projectile time that if you turn even a little bit off your target, trying to get yourself positioned back in the other direction, you're gonna miss Curse of Pains and Curse of Sacrifices when you're in a rush. It's just gonna happen. You have to hold that thing on the target until that cast is fully completed and the projectile reaches its target. At least we have some meds. That's basically why we brought in some extra meds. Just so we can deal with the situation. Mistakes are gonna happen. Sometimes you have to be very careful with Goblin Mages. He'll curve stuff craziest directions. Right there we miss. And somehow we get clipped by Goblin Mage. And we're right back to where we were. Down a lot of HP, unable to heal because Goblin Mage is taking that away from us. We're not really finding anything amazing loot-wise, which hopefully will change once we get to this shelf. Which is one of the best little shelves for profitability you can find. It's just loaded with valuable items. Oftentimes you do find the odd ring or necklace here as well. As you're about to see, we get a knowledge and agility necklace. Not a horrible stat roll for our warlock, as I think that agility will put us up into the positives now. We're gonna take a quick peek at this large room. After that shelf, I'm feeling a little bit better about our gear. But I know this room can be quite a death trap if you're stuck in this hallway with death beetles. Just want to take a quick peek to see if there's any more flesh and blood we can smash through. Honor our big boy, Lich King. This is a very tedious task of dealing Curse of Pain, Curse of Sacrifice, and as we're trying to gain some health back, we get this ranger. He looks a little panicked, and there's no such thing as chill when you're working for the Undead Lord himself as the Lich King. Sorry, but that is just how this works. Nodding Hood has bit the dust and become part of the world of the Undead. Exactly what we're here to do. Once again, didn't really get to fully test out the quarterstaff, other than the one-hit blow of corruption potential it has, which seems pretty fair. Considering we have that ring giving us agility, we're going to take these pants, because it will bump our strength almost up into that threshold of 15, which will be very nice for our melee combat. We're very close, and if we can get out, perhaps there'll be strength gloves in the shop. Dealing with death beetles are always kind of fun. I feel like sometimes I just get a little too close to that stinger. Just need to be a little more patient a lot of times. But at least on the Warlock class, you can make these mistakes and it not be terribly detrimental to your run. You can recover HP, it's just really noisy and loud and takes a while. And once you do stack a few magical healing items, which I hope to do, you can have a lot of sustain. I just find the class is in a weird kind of almost melee, almost caster. It makes it quite difficult. Difficult to manage sometimes early on. We see a barbarian, and even though he wants to be friendly, friendliness is not part of this Undead Warlock's vocabulary or mindset, wherever you want to put it. We're not here to be friendly, we are here to rid the world, all things living, as we try to survive, do the Lich King's dirty work. I hear steps up top. I'm gonna ready a Curse of Pain. Hit another ranger, and he's getting pushed by Skeleton Champion, which is a very weird sight to see. We're gonna need to back off here and maybe get into a spot we can deal with this guy a little better. And of course, one of my escape routes has a barbarian slowly pushing his way towards me. Even a base kit barbarian hits for 70 damage with that battle axe. Throw in a couple throwing axes, which this guy, if he still had them, could easily hit me with. Cannot mess around. Of course, we hit ourselves with Curse of Sacrifice, costing us some health. One thing to remember, Goblin Caves has less portals now, and we're getting close to the final zone, so if I let this guy go, he's going to take my only portal, potentially. I don't know why Curse of Sacrifice is not casting on this guy, so we'll have to switch to Curse of Pain. As we very slowly generate some health back. Waiting for a portal to spawn, and like I said, you can't hear anything when you're casting spells. I really don't want that barbarian taking my only way out of here, and sure enough, we get a portal spawn and we cannot let this guy take it. Which means we're going to get ourselves in a bit of a mess here. We pop Blow of Corruption way too early, expecting this barbarian just to go full speed into us. I do have the block ability, which could come in handy. And this is not a great situation. We're getting body blocked by Skeleton Champion and then walking into a giant axe. We take 2 hits, one from the Skeleton Champion, one from the Barb, and somehow still survive. And dodge, barely dodge, a couple throwing axes. Now this is the tricky part. We need to just lean into full melee here. Forget the spells even exist. As we try to deal with this barbarian. We're very lucky that that killed him. Missing our overhead and relying on a basically body hit, Blow of Corruption, finish that barbarian off. We still have a bit of a mess on our hands. And I will say, casting Curse of Sacrifice there was a bit of a risk, considering if I missed that headshot hitbox, it was likely going to drain my HP. And we get a couple pair of pants, which I don't really have time to... compare them. And I kind of just want to take them both to see what happens when I get back to the main screen. If any of you watch my past permadeaths, you would know that I cut it way too close one time, and it's kind of freaked me out ever since. You have to be a little bit more mindful of that zone closing in, because there's no real audio cue other than the storm itself. Things end quite quickly. One last check, grab some boots at least. We make it out alive. So, quarterstaff has been quite nice. Even though I would attribute some of that last fight to a bit of luck, I would, if I were you guys, lean into the blocking on the quarterstaff if you're going to use it. I'm still kind of surprised I didn't land the block on his swing. It must have just been... The hitbox, I think, was to the right of me, so it somehow caught my arm. And that savage swing, I think it's reckless attack, maybe really freaking hurt. But if you have the ability to block an Achilles strike or reckless attack while playing in the Warlock, which is part of the reason why I like the Bardiche, because it can delete that spell or skill right from the game. You're going to run into a lot of Achilles strike barbarians that just want to horseman axe you or even battle axe you to death. So, there may be a place in the meta or in your build for a quarterstaff. The Falchions lost a lot of its damage numbers, so you're not losing out on a lot of damage if you're taking one, and blocking, if you can learn it, can be very valuable. I have a bit of a tricky decision here to make because I have a knowledge 2 pendant that gives me a little bit more movement speed, but I also have the agility pendant, which is giving me 1 knowledge. I know knowledge increases your cast time, but I like that 2 agility is bumping me past that threshold of 15 and giving me equip speed and all these other things when I'm switching back and forth. So I think early on it may actually be better just to have some decent agility, and I'd go back and forth here a lot because I could not decide. And in the end I do stick with the agility 2, dropping the 2 knowledge pendant. Now, first order of business with our money is a spell book. We do get a green spell book, which costs us a pretty penny. And then really, we're just going to buy some meds and quickly check if there's anything else that's valuable to us. Really, we have our melee weapon, so there's nothing really exciting at the weaponsmith. And then we have our spell book. There's not really any armor you can buy from merchants that's amazing. And truthfully, it may be smarter just to not run a chest piece at all. The only reason why I'm running one is because I have the additional physical damage. Or else, I would drop it so that I can escape barbarians a little bit easier. You need to be extremely light and extremely fast to escape a raging barbarian, which is going to be your biggest downfall. Your greatest adversary. And one last look at the shops gives us a really rare opportunity to buy some magical healing. I was quite shocked by. So we're definitely going to throw that on. It's going to cost us some strength, but it will help our sustain quite a lot. We sell some of our junk and then move into buying a few more meds. Bandages can be nice, quickly recovering some of that recoverable HP if you don't want to wait for a potion to tick. And that's it. So, having had that little bit of excitement with the quarterstaff and the casting, I'm still caught in 2 minds with this class. Like, I want to just blow corruption people to death, but I constantly get caught in the whole, I need to deal a whole bunch of spell damage to them and then hit them with blow of corruption. I feel like the spell book leaves you super vulnerable, and it's a struggle hitting those spells. Most of my time before this wipe with Warlock was simply melee Warlock. It was simpler, you deal a crazy amount of damage, and you have a get out of jail free card with Phantom Eyes. In this setup, you are very much a sitting duck. Once you start missing spells and switch to your melee weapon, you're very damn sure that you're gonna out-fuel that guy, or you're toast. You do not have armor, you're squishy as hell. The only thing you really have is mobility. And the dots don't do a crazy amount of damage to keep people off you for long. Looking at our HP, it's ticking up a little bit faster. But really, +1 magical healing, it's not a huge improvement. It's just something that's nice. It's always amazing to me that Shadow Mask and the Shadow Hoods have like +1 strength or +1 all attributes on them. which can be very beneficial considering they're like entry-level gear for either Warlock or Rogue. You see a Warlock out of the opening spawn, and he wants to get into a casting match. We'll see who can hit who with the Curse of Pain. We trade Curse of Pains. I think he actually took a hit from the Goblin Merchant as we slowly drain some of his blood. He must have really taken off because I don't see him anywhere here. There should be some goblins underneath. They're likely harassing him as well. Sure enough, this could be a blow of corruption opportunity. And there we go again. I think every single kill I've managed to find with this weapon has been a one-shot blow of corruption. It's really a bit silly how much damage you can do early on with the Warlock. And just put the spells aside for a while. Until you get some decent gear, put them aside, I think. And just stick with the melee one-shot build where if you want to use your spells for sustain. Phantomize is a lot better than people realize. Even if you're going full caster, I feel like you should be going caster, Phantomize, or if you're going melee, blow of corruption, Phantomize. The mixture I'm using now feels like a weird in-between. Don't really have any escape or getaway or movement speed. You have some okay melee damage, but you also have some weird little moments where you're going to be casting spells and switching back and forth between melee and spell casting. I feel like if you're going to be a caster, just lean right into it. Get some solid gear, get a whole bunch of magical healing, just pump out stuff like crazy. Super high movement speed, don't let anyone get close to you. Now, if you're trying to do this the other way, you can probably get some decent armor with Marauder's outfit. A few items if you want to go full melee Warlock. This is kind of an in-between, and we're testing it out, and so far, melee seems to be the answer in almost every situation. Just smack him on the head with blow of corruption, and hope for the best. You see a guy messing with Skeleton Champion. I also see a barb kind of slinking around the outside over there. The last thing I want to do is get myself cornered in a situation where I'm basically trying to out-trade a barbarian in melee combat. Which even an entry-level barbarian, if he catches me with an Achilles strike or a throwing axe, I am not escaping that man. And my blocking ability on this quarterstaff is not super great at the moment. So we're going to try to maneuver around this side, staying away from all those mobs. Can suck a little bit of life out of this guy. Hoping this is just one smack to the dome. Doesn't actually take him out. I didn't really want to be spending this much time, and he almost like pivots on me and smashes me in the heels, which would have cost me a lot of health. And now, just as soon as we start looting this, we hear footsteps, which is not good because we're trapped in here. And it's exactly what I thought was going to happen. This barbarian pushes us, staying just out of range of my Curse of Pain. We're going to try to cast a Hellfire, but then, of course, as soon as we switch to Hellfire, he starts pushing. We're just throwing axes out and Achilles Strike ready to go. That Curse of Pain somehow misses, and the throwing axe nearly cripples all of our movement speed, which leads into a perfectly timed reckless attack. He stuck to us so freaking well. There's no way. Like I said, I should have just leaned into melee and tried to block that battle axe, which is a very possible and easy, likely a lot easier thing to do than landing Curse of Pain. And we're going to look at that Curse of Pain one more time, as it causes me a bit of frustration when trying to use spellcasting Warlock. And here's just how close it was. I have it on his body until the very last second. And still we don't get a hit. Ultimately, it wouldn't have saved us, and now finally this former wizard can rest peacefully. So there's just one last thing I want to show you guys, and it's the fact that any type of permadeath right now is getting increasingly difficult. I'm going to show you an example of some of the stuff I faced. Just one good example here in Goblin Caves. I just want to point to the fact that you guys are amazing. Get almost 4,000 subs, and I do now have a Patreon up and running. And the reason for this is it's not really super profitable on YouTube without sponsorships of some kind. That's not to say I'm not enjoying this and making money. I just thought I'd share more of my life stuff with you on Patreon, if any of you are interested in seeing farm-related content. Did any of you hear that little whisper?
Yeah, bro, get that shit.
Yeah, this was my permadeath attempt before the one I just showed you guys. And there's a guy sitting in pretty nice, I mean, all attributes plus strength, all blues and greens, blue rapier, full inventory of meds, has no interest in looting people at all, just camping on a portal. And no, I did not try to report him, that's just my recording software and my hotkeys. This was his role. He set up here, set in invis for 40 or 50 seconds, however long it may be, and would just wait for players to come by. Unfortunately, I was that player. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of blew me away that this is something that people are enjoying, going into Goblin Caves and just sitting in a corner. I don't know. Doesn't, maybe it's just a one-off. I have no idea what this guy's situation is or what he enjoys playing. And it's not for me to tell him that this is not fun. It's kind of funny, I guess. It's just, not great when you're trying to do permadeath runs and you're seeing more and more players just destroy you when you're starting out. Even had a pretty decent setup on Ranger, get absolutely demolished by a Barbarian that you just cannot escape from as a solo player. So, if I were you and I was going to be deciding on playing Warlock early, like I said, I would just fully lean into melee, because you're going to get rushed down by 90% of the melee classes, and out-damaged by any of the range classes, because you can't really get close to them. So I think you just lean into melee and go for it, and you'll probably have better success until you get some pretty crazy gear and want to mix and match your melee and spellcasting. I do think Phantomize is a lot better than most people give it credit for. It's probably something you should be taking on either build, spellcasting or melee. It's almost necessary as you have absolutely no escape plan as a Warlock. So once again, hugely appreciate you all. Wish you all the best of luck in the dungeon as I try to grind out some more permadeath stories for you all. Cheers. Have a good one.